Mic check, 1, 2. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hi guys, Christian Wilde here. I wanted to do another episode of Frequently Asked Questions with Christian Wilde. So if you are new to me as a person and as a performer, welcome. Thank you for checking me out. If you're a longtime fan, I appreciate you greatly and I love you lots. And let's get started. So question number 1 is, what is my favorite thing about the adult industry or working in the adult industry? And there are an immense amount of benefits to working in the adult industry, in my opinion. There are a few slight downsides. I'll get to those. But the first and foremost of my personal positives about working in the adult industry is the fact that I get to be my own boss. I get to make my own schedule. I get to dictate when I work and where I work and with whom I work. And I feel like that is a very rare quality to have nowadays. Not that there's anything wrong with having a boss, having a schedule, being on salary, any of those things. Like I strongly feel that for each and every individual, it is their own choice how they want to live their life. And if some people work better and feel happier working under those conditions, then I feel all the more happy for them. Me personally, I've never been successful at being in a place at a certain time for a certain amount of hours, having to do things like ask for a lunch break, ask for, a restroom break, things of that nature, dealing with higher ups, managers, supervisors, human resources. I am not that type of person. I just don't have the personality to do those things and to abide by that structure. And so when I found the adult industry, it was the perfect storm for me. It was make good money for a relatively, time-wise short amount of work and get to live a pretty decent lifestyle. And I mean, there's travel, there's working with all kinds of just hot, interesting, fun, sexy human beings and making new friends and building new relationships. There's, all sorts of things. The downsides are that it can influence what you wanted to do with your life afterwards. Like say if you wanted to go and work in politics, or if you wanted to be a law enforcement person, or something with a background check, and that comes up, it's still stigmatized enough in the world and in the United States specifically where I live that it can have consequences. So if you wanted to become a preschool teacher or work with children, or lots of different things can be affected in the future by working in the adult industry. And that's just something that I think every person should take into account when they get started. Frequently asked question number 2. So this one is on consent and how do you deal with consent on set and when you're working with people for making content. And consent is something that I feel extraordinarily strong and passionate about. Especially in the last 10 years, I think there's been this really positive shift for everybody being made aware that it's important to say something when you don't feel comfortable. But I personally, from a person in my standpoint in my job, feel like it's almost more important to make sure that I allow the space for those conversations to be had. And so whenever I get on set or whenever I'm meeting up with somebody for, say, a trade shoot for some content trade, I am very, very adamant about having strong conversations about, please tell me what you don't enjoy. Please tell me what's not okay with you. I will ask you before I touch you. At any point, if you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, just have an awkward feeling about anything, I welcome you to say that aloud, and I want to do everything in my power to make you feel comfortable and safe and have everything provided for. So those are healthy work environments, in my opinion. You know, I think that when the space is open and friendly and clear and comfortable, that everything can be said without judgment, without consequence, without sort of any sort of reprimand, anything of that nature. Everything is going to be met with positivity and love and kindness and compassion. And that is a very big part of me feeling okay doing what I'm doing, especially when you start talking about things like BDSM and kink work and bondage, and you know, you have people tied up in very uncomfortable, scary positions. Sometimes the position itself is a challenge, and then you're doing things to their body. Those are times where you're having an immense amount of trust instilled into you, and I don't, for one, take that lightly at all. I take that as a giant responsibility, and making everything feel consensual and understood, that it's a safe environment. It's all about having a good time, enjoyment, pleasure. Never do I want anybody that I work with to walk away feeling like they had a bad experience. So, yeah, I really should have brought some water for doing this. It's a lot of talking. How did I get started in the adult industry? So the interesting thing is that I didn't start in film work. I actually started as a sex worker. And I began, my very first ever paid gig was a guy off of Craigslist was looking for 18 to 25-year-old males. I was like 18, almost 19, I think, maybe. And looking for solo, pays $300. And I was like, huh? Okay, so backtrack a little bit, sorry. I was fresh out of high school, still living with the parents. I'm on Craigslist looking for a real job. And they, back in the day, had a little box down the bottom that was for hookups, and then they had an adult gig section before they got rid of that. So I'm in the adult gig section, just kind of fucking off and, you know, being funny and looking at all the things. Came across this ad, 18 to 22-year-old male, 25-year-old male, solo, right across the bridge from where I'm living. I was like, you want to pay me $300? It's a lot of money at the time for me, to do what I do here at this laptop, like every single night, right? Yeah, we'll check that out. Send him an email, send him a couple of pictures, met him at the mall, followed him to his house, kind of sketchy, but whatever. He's got a camcorder set up in the living room on a tripod, big screen TV, some porn on in the background. And he goes behind the camera to start filming, and I was like, oh, are you gonna be there the whole time? He's like, oh, should I go upstairs? I'm like, yeah, man, that would be cool, because this is gonna be hard, you know? So he goes upstairs, I sit down, waka, do my thing. He comes back downstairs just as I am pulling up my pants. And he walks over and he goes, oh, wow, that's really nice. And I'm like, thanks. And he goes, can I touch it? And I went, are you gonna give me more money? And he was like, I'll give you 200 more bucks. I was like, sold, have yourself some good time, sir. And he just kind of came over and gave me a little fondling, and then I drove home, walked out of there, drove home with $500 in my pocket. And I was like, I can do this 100%. That night, jumped back on Craigslist, sent out a couple of more emails, and then I ended up, I'm debating on whether or not I should tell that story. I'll tell that story, fuck it, why not? So I messaged this guy that was looking for male escorts. At the time, I'm teenager, late teenager, almost 19, I think, or if not 19. I am of the persuasion that I'm super straight, right? But I just happen to like be okay with guys. It's no big deal. And so after a while, I go meet this guy, and he says that he's gonna get me on this website that's really expensive, where I can escort. And I was like, cool. So what do a lot of these women look like? And he's like, oh no, this is for men. I was like, oh. okay, can I like decide what I do and stuff? And he's like, yeah. I was like, cool, I'll just get head. No big deal, right? I'll just get my dick sucked. So I start seeing these clients. Meanwhile, this guy is taking 30% of every deal because he says that it's very, very expensive to put me on this website. Instead of paying him back, I can just pay him back through sexual favor and let him give me head. Okay, not ideal, but I guess I'm young and manipulatable, so we'll go with this, you know? And then after some time, I realized that he was just putting me on, at the time, rentboy.com, and the highest, I think, tier that you could pay for at the time was like $150. And I was like, oh, that guy's been scamming me. And it took me a lot not to go back and be violent, but I allowed it, you know? I was like, man, better to just not go to jail for that, you know? So, yeah, so then from that moment forward, I started doing it by myself, and I was just a solo sex worker and had a great time and ended up meeting the owner of a company and doing some other like Craigslist reach out, and then got myself some adult gigs. Got into porn, and then genuinely, I think that so long as like I've had this long of a career because I've shown up on set on time and been professional and gotten my genitalia where it needs to be when it needs to be there, and then done the ending shot when it needs to happen, and been pleasant in between and kind to people. And I feel like that's what's gotten me to this point, honestly. Like, it's not, I've never felt super attractive enough to be at like the top of the game or have this long of a career, but honestly, I think the majority of it is just being a decent person and being professional and treating it like a job. And then the people that actually film this stuff are like, hey, we should use that guy more often because he's not really difficult, you know? Which actually, that leads me perfectly into my next FAQ. So my next FAQ is, how do you deal with body image stuff? And believe it or not, I actually, everybody struggles with insecurities. Everybody. Every single person deals with how their body looks and what they think they look like versus what other people think they look like. And I'm no different when it comes to that. You know, I've always felt very skinny and very thin, and, you know, some like internet comments have gotten under my skin and things like that. But as I'm getting into my 30s now, it's much more that I'm finding a lot of compassion for myself. And I'm finding ways to treat myself with love and kindness and being gentle and soft with myself, and then just actively trying to take the little steps that are going to get me to where I want to be or where I think I can improve and whatever, you know, but not being super, super hard on myself in the meantime and beating myself up, because it really does no good. It honestly does. It serves no purpose. And it's actually harmful to the process. So now I love my body now, you know, I love the way that I look, and I'm not yet where I would like to be, but I'm also in the process of doing the work to get there. And so that's all I can really do. And then I look at that and I go, cool, I love that for me. That's a good thing, you know? And the final FAQ is things that I wish that I knew when I first started in the adult industry. So there's a couple. First and foremost, taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. The second you start getting 1099s for your work, the second you look into making quarterly payments to the IRS every 3 months, and you start saving huge chunks of your paycheck in a savings account or somewhere in some sort of way, so that at the end of the year, you can pay off all the taxes that you are going to owe. If you don't have like a partner who's working, who pays taxes and takes care of it or whatever, you know, if you're by yourself, pay your goddamn taxes. The man does not play. He will come for you and he will take your shit. I'm not saying that it happened to me, thank God, but I've seen it happen to other people. And you really want to pay those taxes. You really want to set yourself up with a good tax accountant right from the gate. Okay. Tip number 2 would be start getting the rights and ownership of your content. Don't rely so heavily on studios shoots alone. Make sure that you actually shoot some side stuff for trade, even though it may feel like this is silly, I'm not getting paid to film this stuff. You own it. When the studios pay us our day rate, we get good money. Sometimes $300, sometimes $500, sometimes $800, sometimes $1,000, sometimes $1,500. It really depends on what you're shooting and who you are, essentially, where you are in the game. And that's decent money for a day. It's good. I will say that. However, that studio owns that content forever. Forever. And they can do with it whatever they want. They can put it on any single platform. You have signed away the rights to do what you want with that content or where it goes. The studio gets to decide, and they can sell it forever. So they're definitely going to be making more than $3 or $5 or $8 or $1,000 or $1,500 over a 5-year term off of that one piece of content. So I really suggest strongly to newbies and to people just starting out, like, make your own content. It doesn't cost you anything to trade with other performers. That's how a lot of it is being done nowadays, and I am so pumped for that, because when I first started 14 years ago, it was you went and worked for the studios or you didn't work, essentially. Maybe you were a cam model and you were successful that way, but likely you were relying very heavily on the studios for your work and for your promotion and your marketing and getting your face out there. That was the goal. And now it is not that way. Own your stuff. That's a big one. And finally, be safe. Be safe with your body. Be conscious that you're using your body for your job. Treat it that way. Treat it like you're gonna try to, make it look good on camera and function good on camera, and that you're gonna have nice, good energy when you show up, good night's sleep, eating well, drinking water, like all this really basic stuff that leads to a better performance, and being able to really show what you can do in the end. The fans want to see you in your most raw, authentic form, which is why I started doing these, because I want my fans to get to know me, who I am as a person, and hear me talk and how I think and what I think about, and all that type of stuff. So I figured, hey, some YouTube videos, hey, why not? So thank you for watching. If you watched this whole video, you really didn't have to. Appreciate that. Your time is valuable. Love you lots. Thanks for being a fan. Mwah. Be good, be kind to yourself, be kind to others.